Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a genuinely fascinating ancient manual that makes a pretty bold claim that your very breath holds the absolute secrets to your future. We're going to be looking at a source text that outlines the principles of Swar Yoga. It's this incredibly intricate, mystical astrological system. Now, we'll be exploring these claims strictly as an impartial observer today, but we're going to unpack exactly how this ancient manual says you can decode your destiny simply by paying attention to the air flowing in and out of your lungs. So, can the simple act of breathing actually predict your ultimate fate? Well, according to the source text on Swar Yoga we're examining today, the answer is a resounding yes. The author presents a highly specific, deeply systematic approach to answering life's biggest questions. But you know what's really interesting? The motive behind all of this. Surprisingly, it comes down to financial practicality. The author explicitly states that this system is designed to help people avoid deceitful astrologers who might just be out to waste their money. By finding the answers right there in your own physiology, the claim is that absolutely anyone can become their own oracle. Here's a quick roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll cover Swar Yoga and the future. Second, the rules of question evaluation. Third, predicting offspring and disease. Fourth, knowledge of time and death. And finally, evaluating the yearly outcome. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Swar Yoga and the future. If you were to approach a Swar Yoga practitioner with a question about the future, they aren't going to be looking into a crystal ball. Instead, they're evaluating 4 highly specific physical pillars. First up is the physical location of the person asking the question. Second is whether the practitioner themselves is inhaling or exhaling at that exact moment. Third is the actual word count of the question being asked, or even the questioner's name. And finally, they look at the active natural elements, which the text refers to as tattvas. According to the manual, harmony between these 4 variables determines whether an endeavor will succeed or fail. Moving right along to Section 2, Rules of Question Evaluation. The source text insists that your physical position literally dictates your fate. Think of it like a giant grid. If the practitioner's left nostril, which is known as Ida or the Chandra moon breath, is active, the questioner absolutely must be standing above, in front of, or on the left side of the practitioner for a successful outcome. On the flip side, if the right nostril, Pingala, or the Surya sun breath, is active, the questioner needs to be positioned below, behind, or on the right. If these positions don't mathematically align with the breath, the text says the endeavor is doomed to fail. But positioning is really just the beginning. The exact moment the question is vocalized creates a stark dichotomy. If the practitioner is in Purak, meaning they're actively drawing a breath in when the question is asked, that's deemed auspicious. It signals success. However, if they are in Rachak, meaning they're exhaling at that precise millisecond, it's considered inauspicious and signifies failure. So timing, down to the literal second of a breath, is absolutely everything here. Now imagine showing up to ask a vital question about your future, only to have the practitioner carefully counting the syllables and words in your name. This word count must mathematically match the active breath. If your name has an even number of words, it has to align with their Chandra or left breath. An odd word count has to align with the Surya or right breath to ensure success. The author actually advises having the questioner bring a flower or a red piece of paper. It essentially acts as a visual alert system so the practitioner can quickly prepare to count words and monitor their own breathing. But what if on-the-spot math just isn't your strong suit? The author admits that calculating active elements, or tattvas, is a notoriously difficult subject. So for those who find counting in elements a bit too complex, the text offers a surprisingly physical workaround. You simply take a breath and hold it, a state called kumbhak. While holding that breath, you throw a flower straight up into the air. The outcome is brilliantly simple. If the flower falls toward the side of the nostril that was just actively breathing, success is imminent. If it falls to the inactive side, failure is inevitable. Let's move into Section 3, Predicting Offspring and Disease. The text moves into some seriously high-stakes territory here, claiming that the natural elements present during a query can actually dictate the outcome of a pregnancy. According to the manual, if the water element happens to be dominant, a boy will be born. Earth or wind signifies a girl. However, if the fire element is active, a miscarriage or loss of the pregnancy is predicted. And if the space element is dominant, the child will supposedly be born with a physical deformity or be a hermaphrodite. It's also noted that if the Surya or right breath is active, it points to a boy, while the Chandra or left breath points to a girl. When dealing with disease, the manual outlines how simple physical actions suddenly carry massive predictive weight. For instance, if someone asks about a sick relative from the side of the practitioner's active breath, the text guarantees a cure. And we're talking even if hundreds of doctors have failed and the disease seems entirely incurable. Interestingly, if they ask from that active side but use a harsh or abrasive tone of voice, a cure will still happen, but only after significant difficulty and suffering. Furthermore, if the person asking the question just happens to be looking at a living being while speaking, it's considered a guaranteed benefit for the patient. So the physical hierarchy and the exact demeanor of the person asking the question supposedly determine a patient's survival. If the questioner stands physically lower than the practitioner and speaks with polite, humble words, the text says it brings beneficial healing energy. But if the questioner is standing above the practitioner and uses terrifying or harsh words, it's immediately flagged as a fatal omen for the sick patient. We are now entering Section 4, Knowledge of Time and Death, also referred to as Call-Gan. This is where your nostrils effectively become a chilling countdown clock. A lack of natural, alternating fluctuation in your breathing isn't just considered bad for your health, it's viewed as a fatal warning sign. If your breath flows through the exact same nostril day and night without switching, you supposedly have less than 3 years to live. If the surya, or right breath, flows continuously for 2 full days and nights, your lifespan is exactly 2 years. 3 continuous days equals 1 year, and if your right nostril is the only one active for 25 consecutive days, surviving to see the next month is highly doubtful. Beyond just breathing patterns, the text lists some incredibly peculiar and visceral physical anomalies that act as foolproof indicators that death is imminent. Suddenly unable to see the tip of your own nose, your tongue, or your eyebrows, death is near. Amazingly, the incredibly specific act of experiencing hiccups during intimacy is actually listed as a fatal sign. If your middle 3 fingers refuse to bend and your throat dries up without any underlying illness, your time is up. And perhaps most unsettling of all, if you look into a reflection pool of ghee, oil, or water and your head appears to be entirely missing, the manual says you have precisely 1 month left. One of the text's most elaborate rituals involves filling a bronze plate with water and observing the sun's shadow in the reflection. This is used to determine an exact timeline to death. If the reflection appears cut or distorted on the southern side, you've got 6 months. The west means 3 months, the north is 2 months, and a cut in the east means only 1 month remains. If a hole miraculously appears in the center of the shadow, death will arrive in 10 days. And if the shadow appears covered in smoke, ancient sage wisdom dictates that death will occur that very same day. The text actually invites you to test this natural law right now. You make a fist with your right hand, place it on your forehead directly above the eyebrow, level with your nose, and look directly at your wrist. Now, the arm will naturally look thin due to the angle, but if a profound optical illusion occurs where the fist appears entirely severed or separated from the arm, this is considered a definitive, unchangeable law predicting death within 6 months. Finally, let's look at Section 5, Evaluating the Yearly Outcome, or Varshpal. Stepping back from the brink of death, it all comes down to the air in your lungs on one specific morning of the Hindu calendar. On the morning of Chaitra Shukla Pratipada, which is the first day of the Lunar New Year, you must check your breath and elements. If the Chandra or left breath is flowing, accompanied by the earth, water, or wind elements, the promise is a highly auspicious and prosperous year. However, if the fire or space elements happen to be active on that specific morning, brace yourself because the manual says you are in for a year filled with fear and danger. As we wrap up this explainer on the intricate rules of Swar Yoga, we're left looking at a deeply complex system of omens, alignments, and breath counts. Whether you view this as ancient wisdom or mystical superstition, it leaves us with a really compelling question. What do these ancient, intricate rules say about humanity's timeless, desperate desire to decode the chaotic mysteries of destiny? Why are we so driven to find profound order in something as simple and involuntary as the air moving in and out of our lungs? Something to think about. Thank you for exploring this fascinating text with me today.